if I'm a Bears fan, I feel like I got completely screwed in this game. Is that fair, Ryan Wilson?
Oh, 100%. Now, it doesn't help that Matt Nagy's their coach because he helped screw his own team, metaphorically, just with bad decisions, which has been a hallmark of his reign after he was Rookie of the Year, right? Breech's first year. I feel like when we were in Atlanta at the honors for the Super Bowl, he was making an acceptance speech for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, they won the division his first year, I think.
They went 12-4.
Yeah, he's Coach of the Year for sure.
Who was the quarterback?
Mitchell Trubisky.
Oh, Trubisky was there with Fox for a year.
Right.
Hired Fox, hired Nagy, who was.
That feels like it was 20 years ago.
Yes, it does.
But he's getting in the way, I feel like, of Justin Fields' development. But to your point, there were a ton of atrocious calls. Hey, Breech, while I'm talking, will you quickly look up who the referee was for the Steelers Seahawks Super Bowl? Because if it was Tony Corrente,
I'll look for you.
There are going to be some issues because that was luckily pre-Twitter because Seahawks fans were irate at the calls.
Bill Levy.
Is that right? It was Bill Levy?
It was Bill Levy.
I was Tony Corrente. But they were just bad calls, and I wrote down some of them. The low block that negated the Jimmy Graham touchdown, I've never heard that called before by the pulling guard inside the tackle box or outside the tackle. You can't cut block players? How do you run zone schemes if you can't cut block? Breech, you know the rule book. What is that called?
Who's the ESPN rules official?
John
Perry.
Thank you.
John Perry. John Perry was all over. And the fact that,
John Perry was making some bold calls on that broadcast and actually was pretty spot on with some. I'm like,
well, that's what I'm going to say is usually you don't see
job.
the officials. You don't see former officials throw officials under the bus too often, but he was almost getting exasperated at how many bad calls there were. I mean, the low block had no business being called. I think the Bears ended up settling for a field goal there.
Had to because it was a Jimmy Graham touchdown.
That was probably the biggest swing of the game because I know there was a couple other pass interference, a couple roughing the passers that didn't get called, but those were in parts of the field where there's no guarantee that points were going to be the end result. Maybe the Bears don't move the ball after that. Maybe the Steelers do move the ball on the one where they got the pass interference that led to a field goal. You just don't know. But this one actually took points off the board, and it cost the Bears 4 points. You lose by 2. That's insanity. So
right now, and not to move to a different call, but I mean, I think that clearly the biggest call of the night was the taunting call.
No, it was a touchdown. The taunting call was terrible. But as Breech noted,
the Steelers don't get a field goal without the taunting call, right?
The Bears, you're trading 7 points for 3 points. They took Jimmy Graham's touchdown off the board.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
They're both terrible calls. I mean, they're truly two of the worst calls of the season. Has anyone ever seen that whatever the block was called? Has anyone ever seen that called?
I don't think so.
I don't even know what the rule is. Like, I've never seen them put a box around the offensive line.
Sounds like me. I don't even know what the rule is.
There's a path, but the taunting call was insanely idiotic.
I feel like the taunting call is going to be the singular thing that we talk about coming out of this game because
that's right.
Cassius Marsh sacks Ben Roethlisberger to force a 4th down
and forever
after the Bears had fumbled a kickoff return, right? And it's
I don't know if is that the math on that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
All right, go ahead. I'll look it up.
Well, I thought the Steelers had made that field goal. They kick off.
It was 23-20 at the time that Cassius Marsh got called for the taunting.
The Steelers had gotten a first down.
So that was after the fumble.
Yes, immediately. Well, they got a first down. They plowed forward on. I think they either went for it on 4th or it was like a 3rd and short. Oh no, it's 3rd and short. Chase Claypool runs around the end. They get the first down. First down, it's like, oh my God, they're just gonna melt the clock and punch it in or kick a field goal. It's gonna be over. Roquan Smith comes off the left side and just like takes down Big Ben. They're knocked back. It looks like they're going to be taken care of. And then Cassius Marsh sacks Big Ben again on 3rd down, I believe, puts him out of field goal range. And he gets up and he's going nuts, which
not even going nuts, just sort of celebrating and walking towards the Steelers sideline.
His mouth's not moving. And he walks past.
He had the sack, didn't he? I think you're mixing the Roquan Smith sack on another possession. Cassius Marsh was celebrating his sack.
Right. Yeah. He said earlier in the drive.
My brain is sort of bonked out since
everything. It was too much chaos.
Yeah, just don't worry about that part. Just tell us the Cassius Marsh.
Well,
part.
so if Marsh, real quick, so that sack, if there's no penalty on the play, it's 4th and 15.
Yeah, punting.
4th and 15 for the Steelers from their own 46. So I would think they're going to pin the Bears deep, and the Steelers are up a field goal. So that would have been the end result.
There's like 4 minutes at that point, Breech?
There would have been just over 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
So, and the Bears get the ball. We don't know if they get a field goal, they get a touchdown. I mean, they got a touchdown. They got a touchdown at the end of the game because they had to play for a touchdown. We don't know, it's Brinson's game theory. We don't, if they're only down a field goal, if they're only down a field goal, Matt Nagy is the classic coach who would absolutely play for a field goal. And
let me interrupt you quickly, Breech. It's funny you say that because earlier in the game when Matt Nagy was yelling and screaming on the play where Justin Fields didn't get the roughing the passer calls deep in the Steelers territory, it was fourth and goal from the 2 or 3, and he's yelling and screaming at the officials on the last late hit that wasn't called. That should have been called, but instead of going for it or thinking about going for it, he kicks a field goal. So it makes it 10-6 or 14-6 at that point, I think. To your point about him, like he'll settle for field goals all day long.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it was just the amount of missed calls against Fields. I guess there was the one big one. And then the amount of penalties that went against the Bears. I mean, it was egregious. There was just, it was a horrible officiating.
You're right. I mean, the Roquan Smith was the sack that led to the punt.
That was fumble.
Right. That was the fumble that then set up the ensuing Cassius Marsh taunting call.
There you go.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry. My bad.
So here's the other thing quickly. All the bad calls. The low block I wrote down. The non-roughing on Alex Highsmith. The first time when Justin Fields ran and slid and got hit in the back, that's just a running back getting tackled. Minka Fitzpatrick jacking him up on the sidelines. That's just a guy running and getting jacked up. That's a legal hit. The taunting call is absolutely egregious. As bad as the low block call. Probably worse, but the low block call had more implications in terms of the score. The DPI on Jalen Johnson, which you talked about quickly, Breech. But I will say this: the Bears didn't help themselves. I've never seen a team with 47 neutral zone infractions called.
What do you do
in the fourth quarter?
All you do is line up on sides. That's it. That's like, what are you doing here? Like, and that's the thing about all these bad calls. They're going to overshadow the fact that the Bears shot themselves in the foot with all these stupid penalties. It was insanity. That is literally the easiest thing. This is the first thing you learn in Pee Wee football is to line up on sides, and you have the Bears out there getting called for multiple defensive offsides. I mean, it was
12 penalties for 115 yards for the Bears in this game. That is
115 yards is the fourth most any team has been penalized in a non-overtime game this year. I
don't defend Matt Nagy, but if he gets fined for criticizing the officials, he has every right to say whatever he wants to say.
You know what's crazy? You're an NFL coach. You're making at least $5 million a year. After a game like that, I would just give the NFL a blank check. I would cuss. I would go nuts. You got to make a point. Like, don't tuck your tail between your legs. And Matt Nagy, you rarely outcoach anyone. You outcoach Mike Tomlin. Your team played better than the Steelers. You should have won that game, but the refs killed you. I mean, Brinson, you're muted.
I don't know if he outcoached Mike Tomlin. Sorry, I was muting it to try and hear Tomlin talking on his press conference. I don't know if he outcoached Mike Tomlin. I think
that was the best offensive game plan he's had with Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields looked good.
That's a really low bar.
It is, but
the Steelers did not play well, and their offense is a problem.
The Bears did not come out with a good game plan to start. They were sort of forced into a good game plan with Justin Fields and adapted well after halftime, relatively speaking. They didn't move him around a whole lot. They let him throw down the field, though. The Steelers were, getting pressure, but once you get the tight ends running up the seam, I mean, it was a free money all day long. It felt like to Cole Kmet there and on the outside. I mean, I don't know. Look, back to the Tony call. Tony Corrente is, as Cassius Marsh is walking back to the Bears side.
I have a reason for this. Go ahead.
He actively sticks his butt out to draw contact, and then when he gets a little bit of it, is just holding it like holding a pose as his flag is flying through the air. He's taunting Cassius Marsh. He's calling for taunting.
I knew you were going to make this a thing. The thing is, like, I'm the conspiracy theorist on this show, but you look for patterns where there are no patterns. Here's what happened. He had his hand, and John Perry mentioned this, had his hand in his belt to throw the flag before Cassius Marsh even got close to him.
I don't think he threw the flag because he touched him. I think he was soaking it in and making a little ref show and making a scene about it and got a little bump. And then he held his hand up, Wilson.
I am just going to say that Brinson's 7,000 retweets mean that Twitter agrees with what Brinson's saying.
And I will say what Dave Chappelle always says: Twitter ain't real, so it doesn't matter.
I don't want to take Dave Chappelle's side, but that's fine.
But let me just say this: the reason he bowed up on him, Tony Corrente did, because when you're an old person and you feel like you're about to get hit by a young person, if you would, like I mentioned before, the grocery store analogy, you sort of have to brace yourself so you don't fall over. I mean, he might have a bad hip, he might have 2 bad knees.
You know what else you could do is take one step forward and not make contact.
It's bad knees.
No, it's garbage. He's staring down Cassius Martin, holding his hand and like he's holding it like was it J.R. Smith who did the shot? No, it was Nick Young for the Lakers, I think, or maybe the Clippers. It's that famous gif where he's like holding a pose and walking backwards, turns around and then the ball rims out. Tony Corrente is holding a pose with this flag and literally taunting Cassius Martin while calling him for taunting. Like that's what I mean. But I don't have a problem if if this ref wants to make it about it. It was like Leslie Nielsen in Naked Gun when he's when he's the umpire for the Angels. He's just doing like a little peacock thing across the. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Breech. I'm reading the tweet now. I wasn't on Twitter during the game because I'm a grown man. I see Brinson ends the tweet with "What a joke! Just get out of here, you butthole."
Did you have this game on mute? It was unbelievable. If you watch it, it was incredible.
Well, I had it on mute because I was working on my picks, and that's because I came out, and that's why I asked you guys about the timeout, because I looked up and I saw the clock was stopped, and then I saw the Bears called a timeout, and I thought they were trying to ice Chris Boswell on his game-winning field goal with 30 seconds left, and so that's why I asked, because I just looked up. I was like, what are they doing? And then, clearly I had no idea that they had stopped the clock to do a measurement, and Twitter let me know very quickly, and I did not delete my tweet, because if I'm going to tweet out dumb stuff, then I need to be called out for my dumb stuff.
Oh, okay. You actually tweeted that out?
Tony Corrente, that was the epitome of a ref show where he steals a scene, makes it about him, and in the NFL, but it's fine if Tony Corrente does it. Can't have Cassius Martin celebrating a massive sack by not saying anything and like getting pumped up and running on the field. What are we doing here?
Well, it's not even look. I'm indifferent. Even Matt Nagy said that. Look, Matt Nagy after this game said, "I was for the taunting rule. Football's an emotional game. I'm not going to bash that call." I'm sure
I would be so angry if I was a Bears player if he said that. But go ahead, Breech.
Because he needs to have his players back. But here, look, we know what Marsh did. He stared down the Steelers sideline. Like, what now?
Who cares?
That's a taunting. He was
20 yards from the bench.
The rule. I'm not saying it was a good call. I'm just saying
no. It is an arbitrary bullcrap rule created because John Morrow's got a tight butt and can't deal with the fact that these guys that he's paying to go out there and do battle for 60 minutes get amped up and excited when they make plays.
You understand that, as Breech just sort of alluded to, the coaches decided on this rule.
The coaches back up.
I think the bigger problem here is that 3 years ago we had Roger Goodell talking about we don't want to legalize gambling because the integrity of the game, and games like this look horrible. And someday you're going to have someone who bet $5 million on the Bears money line and they lose because Tony Corrente, and then they're going to, crazy people said death threats on Twitter. Crazy people do crazy stuff. And that's what's going to happen when you have just things like this happen where people are just in shock. And so it's a bad look for the NFL to have all these bad calls.
By the way, Wilson, hold up the merchandise we're giving away again, both of the hat and the toboggan. Hit the like button on this video if you're watching. If we get to when we get to 150, we will give away your choice of a Brinson Sucks hat or a Brinson Sucks toboggan, because
champion on it, baby.
What I need is to be hazed in my own live podcast.
This is limited edition apparel, people.
There are only 12 of those each. So hit the like button right now and leave your handle in the comments. You'll be eligible to win those.
Worth noting quickly, I see in the comments, Tony Corrente, you are not eligible to win one of these hats.
Correct. Tony Corrente, not eligible. I don't have a problem with the idea of reducing taunting. Somebody gets in somebody's face. Like Jalen Ramsey, he got called for unsportsmanlike on Sunday night. he got up and shoved AJ Brown down after he made a play.
And then he fake flopped like he didn't mean to do it, which was also hilarious.
If you want to cut out like a really aggressive, over the top,
that's a penalty. What Jalen Ramsey did, what Cassius Marsh did, and what every other call has been this season is idiotic. It's just wasting time. And I say it every week. Answers to questions that no one was asking to begin with. No one cares. Stop it. I mean, I'm giving you a hard time. I was laughing at your tweet because you ended with "what a joke," which is like such an old man thing to say because you're old now. But everything else, I don't disagree with. I mean, just get out of the way, old man.
I mean, Cassius Marsh is a journeyman 4th-round pick who on Monday Night Football went out and made a massive play
against the team that cut him.
Correct.
And he didn't go over there and do like the
he didn't like
Key and Peele dance,
the double the Triple H X chop or whatever, or like give the Eli Manning double birds. Yeah, he was just jumping around and celebrating after a sack. Like, you can't ask these guys to just professionally like shake your hand and move on. It's ridiculous. And
I say it all the time. They're not working at a bank, Breech. They're football players.
Right. I mean,
maybe they should work at a bank then. There's no taunting flags there.